Hello, one and all, to our podcast, The Server Nights. Here with me today is my dad. Oh, you guys really just tried to mess stuff up, huh? Why do I always have to deal with you guys? Just damn it.
You give us a soundboard.
I'm actually going to start. Please. Just...
Okay.
Hello. Okay. Damn it. Hello, one and all. Why do you guys just suck? Oh my gosh.
We both went for the same sound.
Okay, I'm gonna start off then.
All right.
Okay.
Hello, one and all, to our podcast, The Server Nights. You know, I can't do anything if it's loud enough. I would have been okay if it was like a small thing, but then it's like that fucking thing, and it's just...
misinput. Calm down. You calm the fuck down.
Do you guys want to?
I knew he was gonna go for one.
Okay.
It was too quiet. He was silently holding it.
Do you guys want to start the podcast or not?
Yeah. I'm good. I got it up.
Okay, good.
Sorry, go ahead.
Good. Are you sure?
No.
Okay. Hello, one and all, to our podcast, The Server Nights. Here with me today is my dad, Rebel Knight, and my brother, Saint Weeb. Today we'll be talking about superheroes as a way to transition from the Halloween stuff. So I think what we're going to start off with is our favorite superhero. Dad, what would you say yours is and why?
So, I grew up with all the comic books. I'm the comic fan in the family. Mine started out with when I was younger. I was dyslexic, and so my father, who was an avid reader, your grandfather, he wanted me to keep reading, and I had just stopped because it was so difficult to read. No matter what I tried to read, it would drive me crazy trying to read anything. So he started buying me comics, and then everywhere we went, because I would go with him, we would go yard selling, go to find parts and cars, and just traveling around. He would buy me a comic to keep me entertained, and it was always Batman comic books. And with Batman, what your grandfather liked about him best was that he didn't have superpowers. Yeah, he dressed up in a costume, but he basically trained himself to be a better human being. So he tried really hard. And so he wanted to instill that in me. And with that being in my head, it was also, over the years, it's been kind of instilled in me to be more of a better human being, kind of a superhero type, you know. Like when I was in high school, there was a guy that I know that was getting picked on a lot, and I got sick and tired of it. And these were my friends that were picking on him, my friends, my closest friends in high school, and they ended up getting into a fist fight with one of them because he was picking on him so hard. And this kid had glasses, he had braces, you know, and he had asthma, and he struggled. And I figured I can't let that happen. I can't let that pass. And so we ended up getting a fist fight because he wanted to keep picking on him, and I didn't want him to do it. And I kind of got exiled by the quote unquote popular kids in school. Even though I was captain of the football team and all that, they still kind of excommunicated me more or less. But I was okay with it because I knew I was doing the right thing, and that all kind of stems from comic books. So Batman was always the go-to hero for me since the time I was a young kid. When I got into college, I had a roommate that had like 7 or 8 boxes of Batman comics sitting in her room, and it was a big deal because for him, he was really, really into comics, and I had kind of given up on comics right before high school and figured I had outgrown them. And I went through all of his comics reading them. You know, during college, I read literally 5 or 6 boxes of Batman comic books, and really kind of got into it. But then I started reading about other heroes, and not just DC comics, but like Marvel comics and Image comics and all these other ones. And over the years, I've collected a few here and there. I don't have a huge collection, but I have a pretty good sized one. And I had a really big Marvel collection that I ended up selling to a friend because her friend had lost all of his comics in a flood in his basement. And so I sold her my collection of Marvel comics minus a few handfuls that I wanted to keep for myself. And she said he was not just grateful, he was like breaking down crying. It made me realize how comics are kind of an important part of fandom and that whole kind of nerd genre. That it's kind of the basis for a lot of that stuff, including movies and games and you name it. Sorry, go ahead. Saint, what's your favorite hero and why?
I like Moon Knight because he's mentally ill.
You're killing me. Come on.
Is that why you were snickering this whole time? I kept hearing your little breathy snicker going on because I knew you were going to do something, and I kept waiting for that soundboard to come back up and something like a quack or a.
I was prepping to use it, but like I was waiting for because it was like a very simple question. It was like, "What's your favorite superhero?" And then you went on a whole story, and I mean, don't get me wrong, like it ties in, it makes sense, but like I don't know, I felt like that should have probably been a lot more simple. Just I like Batman, and then we go into me, and I tell who I like, which I actually do like Moon Knight because he fights for like
the moon, I guess.
Oh, did it cut out?
Oh, did it actually cut out? Okay. Well then.
You were trying to change the voice, weren't you?
No.
You went silent. Okay.
No, just I don't know. I don't know. I like Moon Knight. He's cool. He's kind of very detective on the Marvel side.
Well, it's funny that you say that because Moon Knight is actually who they consider to be Marvel's Batman. But for me, they had different psychological differences, but the same was that they both had psychological damage. With Batman, it was the loss of his parents and the abandonment feelings that he has. But with Moon Knight, it was he has multiple personalities.
Yeah, I like how they were trying to bring in awareness for all the mental problems people are kind of going through right now. It's been tough for everybody as of late, and for them to really bring that out through cool superhero shows, I think it really brings in a lot of awareness to it. It's kind of important.
Well, and as strange as it sounds, Moon Knight came out in the 80s because I remember him back then when I was a kid, and so he's been around for a very long time. But the fact that those mental illnesses can be brought forward now to help people, I think is amazing.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's a really good. I think it's really cool what they're doing with that. But I think there's times to do it and times not to do it. Moon Knight was a good example of times to do it. Like, mental health awareness is not as talked about when it's needed the most, which is currently. Yeah. But like things with their other shows that they've been doing, like She-Hulk and like what was it, Miss Marvel. They really are trying too hard to I don't know, it doesn't tie in as well as they're trying to make it tie in.
I think this is something that you and I have talked about before, and this is what I really do believe is happening with those two, is it's the corporate heads that think that they know what's going on, quote unquote. They think they know what's going on, and the truth of the matter is that they don't.
Yeah.
And they're missing their mark. The people that are spending the money are fandom nerds like us who go, "Oh, I loved that show. It was really great. I'm going to buy all the merch for it." And they think that we're going to do that with anything that they throw at us. And that's not true. And then they waste millions of dollars. All the CGI in She-Hulk. I mean, the actress was perfect. They did the CGI work was amazing. But the storyline sucked. And they just made it more comical, and everything else that Marvel has done has more of a real life feel to it. A little more serious tone with like light hints of comedy. Yeah, and this one was just all straight comedy. Whereas the comic book, I mean, honestly, the She-Hulk comics were based in humor, and that was fine. But those comics also failed. Yeah, and they didn't pay attention to it. And what they really need to do is, and they've stopped doing this. And this goes back to way back when the first Spider-Man came out with Tobey Maguire. They had tested that at San Diego Comic-Con before it became this gigantic thing. They had tested it there, and it did amazing, and people were like so happy, and they said, you guys stuck to the original story, you know, you didn't change things up. I mean, it was original to the comics. They honored that as much as possible.
Yeah.
And the crowds went nuts. So they said, okay, let's push forward with it. And they did all their marketing, and it was amazing. And we bought, your mom and I bought, you guys, you and Jesse, a ton of Spider-Man stuff. Tons and tons of it, because you guys thought it was kind of cool to see Spider-Man. And they thought, oh, this guy in this bright suit, and blah, blah, blah. And you guys liked it. So we bought it. We bought the movies. We bought T-shirts. We bought pajamas. We bought pillows. We bought action figures. We bought all this stuff. Not that you guys held on to it, and like a year later you guys were over it, but we had spent all that money on all that.
That explains why I had that Spider-Man costume. I remember that.
I kept finding Spider-Man rags as well, which is kind of interesting. We just had a lot of them.
Yeah. We had lots of Spider-Man stuff. And, well, and in all honesty, after a year, they had so much of it that it had kind of gone on sale, so we got a lot of that stuff on sale. So. It was just part of the genre, but that was back when they were paying attention to what happened at San Diego Comic-Con. Yeah. And then they stopped doing that as much.
They stopped listening to fans, and I think that's where it really started going downhill, because I do think there is a separation between like where comics get turned into movies. There are things that you gotta mix match, you know, work with each other to find out what works best for, say, if you were making a movie from a comic. Like the costumes they've done great on. They changed them, but in a way that doesn't take away from what it originally was. And I think that's really important that they did that. But things with like the storylines, sometimes they would miss marks that messed up and didn't work as well, and they didn't try to fix those the next time they worked on their next project. No, they incorporated those again and again and again, and it just didn't change, and it got worse over time. And it makes it really hard for nerds and geeks and whatnot to really enjoy these huge CGI battles and stuff, because it doesn't fit with the story. If it has to fit. But since they don't want to listen, it makes it so it doesn't do well, and they just keep adding whatever because they think, oh, it's making money, we could just keep messing with it and the people will love it. And then they don't listen to the feedback on it, which makes it worse. It's really sad.
I kind of want to get into that, especially with DC, Warner Brothers. But I want to take a step back real quick and go to Gateman and see what his favorite superhero was.
Oh yeah. Just as a side note, I'd say my favorite superhero is the Flash, because instead of like, you know, all these characters are like, they beat up the bad guys, they just do a job and they do it as they do want to. But for the Flash, it's taking care of those that are not mentally stable or like stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, like with his villains in particular, he actually like helps them along the way. I think that's really something cool that so many of the superheroes kind of forget about.
He rehabilitates.
I can totally understand where you're with that. Yeah, he works hard to actually make them better. Whereas Batman's like busy fighting all 20 of his bad guys and just trying to keep them in prison. That's not working.
Well, and that's the thing is Batman just takes, and again, he's my favorite superhero, but the thing is he takes his criminals and he doesn't care what their background stories are. He doesn't care about rehabilitating them. He just wants them in Arkham Asylum or in jail and away from him. That's all he cares about. Tonight's problem is this. That's taken care of. They're in jail. What's the next problem? But with Flash, it seemed like he would go in and get to know them and then rehabilitate them, and then when they run into him, he goes, "Are we really going to do this, guys? Come on. All right, let's just wrap this up and we'll get you guys off to jail, and then maybe next time you'll come to me if you need some help with something." And he really did help. The Trickster in particular was one of his, and he had him go straight, and even helped his daughter, who ended up being one of Batman's disciples later on. And they were all. It's funny how they all tie in together, but the Flash was the one who got that all kind of orchestrated to keep him on the straight and narrow, and hey, do this because your daughter is doing good, you need to do good, and he would kind of straighten him out, and then he would help out the Flash whenever he got a chance. So it almost made him a hero too.
I also like the fact that Flash does have like the power of Superman and like the strength to knock him out and stuff like that. But at the same time, he wants to help out these people, and so he does. And so it's like a thing where it's like he has all this power, but he'd rather use it to help others rather than just like keep them in check. You know?
I would actually like to talk about how like they don't make their most powerful characters the main characters. Like Superman and Batman, sure, they're really fucking tough and really powerful and really smart, but Flash and Plastic Man are probably like two of the most powerful characters that they don't really fully develop into their whole cycle all the time. Flash, sure, you know, he's one of the main ones, but he's not the main ones. You know?
Okay, so that was the thing with the Flash, was that in the comic books they made him OP. They truly did. He's a scientist with a detective's head and superpowers. And what it is that with that science brain of his, he's using that with the Speed Force to do things. Like he runs around the planet a couple times, builds up that force and the gravity of it to where he can focus the point into one single point and knock Superman out if he wanted to, which is amazing, because he's basically hitting him with a planet, the planet's gravity, just to, you know, because the science. I love that. But it's also with Plastic Man. Batman has stated repeatedly that Plastic Man is the strongest superhero on the planet. Where you really get to see this play out is in cartoons.
Batman the Brave and the Bold.
Animated, yes. But there was one where they were talking about the Flash in Justice League Unlimited, I think it was, and the Flash. Basically, it was Brainiac and Lex Luthor had bonded together, and they had taken down the entire Justice League. And then he looks at Flash and goes, "What are you going to do? Run at me really quick? I can counter anything you do." And it looks like he runs off and is running away from him. And really, what he was doing was running around the planet and then hitting him. And it basically knocked Brainiac loose of Lex Luthor, and then, but he ran so fast that he ended up entering the Speed Force and disappearing. In the comics, it was pretty close to that same thing that happened. He used his power. He used the full force of his powers. But now in the cartoon, it was Wally West, and in the comic books, it was Barry Allen. And Barry Allen, to me, was the original Flash, and Wally West was Kid Flash. Now there's just two different Flashes in the comic books, but Barry Allen was the original. And to me, he was the scientific one. And when there's a comic where
you cut out.
Wally West is the Flash, and he goes, "My uncle." Oh, am I back?
Yeah, you're back. It just cut out for like a second or so.
Okay, where'd you lose me?
A couple seconds back.
Okay. So anyway, what Wally was saying was that his uncle Barry was giving him flashbacks, so he could use the science that he was given and pass it on to Kid Flash, so he could use that Speed Force the way he uses it. And in every comic, and even in the cartoons, they started saying this too, is Wally West was actually faster than the Flash. You know, just a little bit faster, but he didn't have the mind that Barry did. And so Barry used science to really enforce the fact that he was the Flash. I always loved that, and I wish they would play that out a little bit more. And, you know, in movies, they always do, you're right there, Saint, when they kept doing Superman and Batman, Superman and Batman, Superman and Batman. Over the years, there's so many movies and cartoons, and there's TV shows and everything. The Flash should have had his own a long time ago, because his power is easy to generate on CGI. There was a Flash TV show in the 90s that was amazing, and they had the Trickster in there, and it was played by Mark Hamill, who also does the voice of the Joker on Batman animated series.
Luke Skywalker,
Luke Skywalker. But he played the Trickster in real life, and he did the same Joker voice, and it was amazing, and he did fantastic. But they should have done a movie. They should be doing movies on the Flash. So much more. It would save them all the money that they think they're going to spend. They would make a bunch more money back, because people would go to see it.
I think as of late, their biggest problem has been they're all trying to make it live action, and that's not where their biggest audience comes from. It's all the biggest audience comes from all the animation, because they've had so many shows where like Justice League. They've had the what was it called? Recently, I was rewatching Justice League, the old one, the animated one, and with Martian Manhunter and stuff, like his story and whatnot. They don't really go into his story enough, and it's rough. I mean, he's obviously a Martian who was like caught in a war with what were they called?
The white Martians. There was green Martians, white Martians. But what had happened was they're of the same species. They're like Filipinos and Caucasians. It's it's that you said in the Caucasian, the white ones are the white aliens are the bad guys. Go figure. And so, what it was that actually the original story for Martian Manhunter is that he got pulled from his planet to Earth by a scientist who was trying to reach out to Mars to see if there was life there, and ended up pulling this Martian that got stuck on our planet. But to me, that doesn't make as much sense, because Martian Manhunter's abilities and powers are amazing. He's got the strength of Superman. He's got the speed of the Flash. Plus, he can phase through stuff. He can change his shape and colors and everything. He's like Plastic Man, but without the super flexy. He can morph into anything or anyone.
And as long as he doesn't run into an angry mob with torches, he's all fine.
Yes, the one downfall is fire, which mentally they are weak when it comes to fire. They're so scared of it. It's
probably because it's all plasma and whatnot. The molecules are kind of separating at like a faster speed. So when he's phasing through stuff and his atoms kind of separate, they separate too much when it's near fire.
Yeah, it could definitely be something like that. But see, this all kind of goes back to what we were about to talk about, which is the DC universe and what characters I think they should have been bringing forward. Now, let me just, before we really get into it, I really want to start with the movie Justice League by Warner Brothers, the DC Justice League. The one that was released in the theaters first, originally was supposed to be, the Snyder first guy, I can't remember his first name, but Snyder was a comic book fan, a huge comic book fan, and he had an idea, and he was going to make this whole world. It was going to be amazing. And then, can't remember what happened. I think it was his son died or something along that line, and so he needed to grieve. And they said, "Well, you can take a week." And he goes, "No, I'm going to need more time than that." It might have been his father. I'm not sure what it was, but he needed some time. And I understood that. I could understand that. But they didn't. The corporate heads did not. And so they go, okay, we're going to bring in another director. And so they brought in Josh Whedon. Now, don't get me wrong. Josh Whedon has a very special place in my heart because of the TV show Firefly. It did one season, but it was amazing. Yeah. And I would love to watch that show every day for the rest of my life, and I would be okay with it because it's that good. But when it comes to superheroes, he doesn't know those characters. He didn't know any of them. And like with the Flash, they made him this goofy kid who didn't know what was going on or how to do anything. No, Barry Allen was a scientist. He was really smart. With the DC universe, with Josh Whedon's Justice League, sucked. It sucked. It was terrible. It was not the right characters. It was not set up the way it was supposed to be done. Yeah. He changed everything about it, and even the actors said that Josh Whedon was not kind about it. They wouldn't listen to him, or he wouldn't listen to them. So that was really rough, and there's a lot that goes into that. But when Snyder got the universe back in it, basically he redid it all and did a 4-hour long movie. Let me just tell you, that is my favorite superhero movie of all time. Really? Because the new one done in the Snyderverse style was amazing. The Flash was smarter. They did more based on Cyborg, it wasn't just Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. It was, what does Cyborg have to offer? What does he bring to the team? What does the Flash bring to the team? They brought in a lot of that. It wasn't just some stupid kid who stumbled across the powers of the Flash. It was, he's smart. He scientifically understood what was going on, how to reassemble Superman and bring him back to life. He may not have agreed with it, but he was like, I could see how this could work.
Yeah,
and
I do really like that they brought Cyborg in, because they just do not bring in enough characters most times that are just outside of the main like 4 or 5, you know. And even Green Lantern's kind of been cut off from like most of the Justice League as of late. Like they haven't really been adding him to anything, which is kind of rough to see.
Seeing in the comics, they had so many heroes in the Justice League that it kind of got out of control. That started back in the 80s. There was a need for other characters, outside ones, and there was ones like Vibe, who was this gypsy girl. Or no, not gypsy. There was Gypsy, she was different. And then there was Vibe, who could vibrate the ground, and things like this. These characters, they were really great, but they almost became kind of sub-characters, and they needed to group together to become the Justice League, because on their own, they couldn't do nearly as much as they could together, which made a great storyline. But eventually, what happened was that in the comics, they started saying, okay, well, we're losing sight of the 3 main characters that really draw people in. They call it the Trinity now in the comic book world, which is Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. And I know those are great foundations to build on, but really what I'd like to see DC do is take something like Plastic Man or The Flash or redo the Green Lantern and make them the focal point in the Justice League, and then bring in the other characters with that. You could bring Superman, we know that story. Bring in Batman, we know his story. Bring in Wonder Woman, that we know that story. But let's see some of these other characters. What's their background? Where did they come from? Where are they doing? What can they do? And along with Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman. And I don't mind bringing in the Trinity, but I don't want to make them the focal point of the whole show.
So talking about that, what would you guys say is one of your favorite characters that are like underrated or underestimated, or like the underdog? Like some
Condiment Man.
What? Condiment Man?
The only guy that Alfred is truly afraid of. Due to stains alone. He just
emotional damage.
I don't think Condiment Man, who was a villain, by the way, really. There was a Kite Man. Did you know that?
Yes, that one was actually in the Harley Quinn show.
Was it?
Yeah.
I never really watched the Harley Quinn show.
Yeah, it's mid.
It's pretty bad. I was in my 20s when Batman Animated Series came out, and I regularly watched that. Yeah. That was my favorite show during the 90s. And Harley Quinn was this new character that we all loved. I worked at Warner Brothers, and that was the one that all of us just loved the most. Harley Quinn was amazing. And I love that she became so big.
I think one of the shows that kind of goes under the radar most times was The Batman. It was one of the animated series. And it was one where Joker had like the red eyes and like the fingerless gloves, and he could actually fight, which made that show so much cooler, because like it makes sense that he would be able to fight, because like, you know, he's got a high IQ just like Batman. So saying he wouldn't like learn moves off of him eventually after years of fighting just wouldn't make sense. Like he would totally learn that, you know.
So in most cases, the Joker is the skinny guy that basically used his mind more than he did his body. Yeah. And because he thought it was funnier to be like that. And I always thought of the Joker as more of a intellectual villain, but I know what you mean when they made him have a bigger upper body and he could fight Batman one-on-one. I thought that was interesting how they did that, but I did like that one. I really liked the opening music for it.
Yeah, it was a lot more darker tone, which I think everybody kind of really enjoyed with how they went about it, but I feel like it didn't get enough like episodes. Like it was kind of one of the shorter series for some reason.
It was short-lived. but it had some really good character looks. Like Catwoman looked cool with the red eyes, and the Penguin looked like the Penguin, but he was still kind of a tough guy to beat. And I liked that series. That was a really good one too. But I see it, and I still go back to that. They really should have done other characters. There was actually once when I was working for Warner Brothers, there was talk of a show that was going to come out, and we were so excited. We really wanted them to do it, and then it got shelved and never brought back out. It was supposed to be called Young Bruce Wayne, and it was supposed to be about how Bruce Wayne, as a young 19, 20-year-old guy, when he finishes college and goes out into the world to explore and to learn. Because in the comics, Batman had gone to the greatest magician to learn how to do magic tricks, a sleight of hand, things like this. And in the comics, it turns out to be Zatanna, I'm going to say it wrong. It's Zatanna's father. And he's learning magic from him, and he spends like a year learning from him. And then in that time, he has a relationship with Zatanna, and she's kind of one of his love interests, and he kind of falls for her, but he has a mission, so then he leaves. And he leaves so abruptly that it broke her heart, and later on when he becomes Batman, she knows who he is. And she basically confronts him about it, you broke my heart, blah, blah, blah. So this was supposed to be the whole Bruce Wayne stories. He goes out and he meets up with this magician, learns it. Then he goes and he meets with an escape artist and learns how to escape. Then he also learns how to use swords, and then he learns martial arts, and he just travels the world learning from different people. And it'll be the whole premise. And then towards the end, he becomes Batman.
Now that I kind of realize that they really don't go too much into detail on how he really becomes Batman. It goes learns his martial arts off of how did he learn his martial arts? What was that group called? There was a group or something.
Okay, so in the movie it was the
League of Shadows, something like that.
League of Shadows.
League of Shadows, yeah.
In Batman Begins, where they really showed him how to. Well, he already knew how to fight. He knew several different styles of martial arts, but when he got in there, he learned how to fight multiple people, and it psychologically prepared him for fighting in a way that he was not taught before. So it really helped him. But in the movie, in the comics, there's a character called the Bronze Tiger who was actually one of Bruce Wayne's friends, and they trained under this one martial artist who was amazing and the best on the planet, and Bronze Tiger ended up becoming a superhero too. But one of the few African American superheroes, which I always thought was kind of amazing. But it's one of those things where that show, the TV show, could have been this great basis for a super great, amazing Batman movie. Because it could have been young Bruce Wayne, do 2 or 3 seasons, and then when they're ready to cut the show off, then make a movie. Turn off the show. You've got all the background, the whole history of it. If you watched it and followed all the episodes, you would have gotten to this great ending where he decides, I'm going to be Batman. Last episode would be in Gotham. He's learned all he's going to learn. Now he's going to become Batman. And then the TV show ends. Great. And a year or so later, the movie comes out. And it would be like Batman Year 1 or something. And it would be the first year of him being Batman and just what he does to learn as the Batman to be a better hero.
I remember there was, I don't remember which series it was, but I think it was Batman and Blue Beetle kind of go into the past. And they kind of actually goes a little bit into detail with younger Batman with his one-liners and having trouble with the batarangs and whatnot. But it was really funny because Blue Beetle was mocking him for some of this stuff, and Batman was just not having his let's go, and just moved on from it over and over. It was really funny, but they really don't tie in that much.
That was the one that came out a few years back. They actually did one of the best series I think they should still do. which was Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. In the comics, they were a comedic duo. They're superheroes, but they're idiots, and they just do stupid things. They play pranks on each other, and I wish they would do that TV show. It would be so fun. I mean, they fight crime, and they solve crimes, and they're both smart enough to be better than they are, but Booster's kind of got an ego, and so he thinks he's going to be this great superhero, but then Blue Beetle is really smart as an engineer. He can create anything. This was the Blue Beetle that isn't out in the theaters, that just came out in the theaters recently. That's a super powered one. He has a alien technology attaches itself to his spinal column, and he can create swords and guns, and it's all super powered. The original Blue Beetle that I always think of is the one that he was kind of like Batman, but a little more goofy. He wasn't so serious about things. And I would really love for them to have done that instead. But I think for your generation and the current generation, I think the newer Blue Beetle is what everybody thinks of when you say Blue Beetle. I think the other one was the Blue Beetle from my generation, that grew up in the 80s and the 90s. That was more. I think that was more my generation.
I always think of Blue Beetle as like a rookie superhero, someone who is still growing into his powers and stuff like that. And
that's the one that's out now. The one that everybody thinks of now. This generation, your generation.
You kind of tapped into it a little, but like Booster Gold, like what happened with him? They kind of completely cut him out. He was one of my favorite characters originally, but like I don't know, they stopped doing Booster Gold stuff.
Well, see, and Booster Gold came from the future, and he had stolen a suit and some technology, and figured he was a janitor in a superhero museum, and he stole this technology and went into the past, became a superhero, and then along the way, because he wanted to become rich and famous, that's what he wanted. That's all he wanted. And so that's where that ego comes to. He's kind of a narcissist. He thinks he's this great superhero, and he deserves to be with the great superheroes because he's got a suit and he has a little robot that helps him out. Eventually, what happens is in the comics, what had happened was one of the storylines was that he ends up getting people killed, and one of them was Blue Beetle, and it was on Doomsday. He actually beat up Booster, but the suit saved him. But when Doomsday got a hold of Blue Beetle, he killed him. And Booster had the suit. Sorry, Booster had the suit and it saved him. Blue Beetle didn't. And so, with that said, Booster kind of rethought his life and changed things. And for a while, he was this secret hero. Booster Gold had kind of disappeared, and this other hero had showed up, and he wore a full mask, and he would zoom in, save everybody, and then disappear. No publicity, trying to make a mark or trying to make money. He just disappeared, and he did that for a long time, and then somebody figured out who he was. And I think that was during the time that Batman had quote-unquote died and brought back to life, like Green Arrow and Green Lantern and Superman.
Pretty much everybody.
That's the thing about DC in the comics is everybody dies at least once. Some people get to die a couple times. Yeah.
I remember from I'm pretty sure it was an anime movie that I was watching with you, Dad. This guy was being buried, and basically nobody came to the funeral, and someone said, "Why is nobody here?" And then the guy that's burying says, "I'm pretty sure he's gonna come back to life eventually. I mean, I'm pretty sure I buried half these people several dozen times, including you."
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. Because the Flash even came back.
Yeah.
The Flash disappeared, died, came back. Green Lantern died, came back. In the TV shows, now not the movies or the comics, but in the TV shows, I've been disappointed pretty much every time. Smallville, I think, was the last good one, and I thought for sure that they were going to take Tom Welling, who played Clark Kent. I thought sure they were going to make him Superman. I thought they were going to put him in a movie, and I thought that would be that's genius. Those guys at Warner Brothers really know what they're talking about, and then they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything with that. And that Smallville was so huge. Rosenberg as Lex Luthor, and oh my God, even the girl who played Supergirl was amazing. The girl who played Lana Lang was amazing. The girl who played Lois Lane was amazing. Jimmy was incredible. It was like they had it all set up. All they had to do was just throw the budget for a movie, give them a huge villain to fight, and everybody would have showed up to spend their money to watch it, and they did. They dropped the ball constantly with DC. The higher ups have no idea what the fan base wants or what they should be doing to try and serve the public for that. It was so disappointing because that one was the last one when they did Green Arrow, and I like to refer it as Green Batman. It was such a terrible show. It was so good at first, but if you know who Ollie is in the comic books, it is nothing like the TV show. Nothing.
Yeah, they left out all the comedy. Like there has to be like a little bit of comedy because that's just how the character is. But they made him super serious. And
they even gave it Batman's villains. Ra's al Ghul was like one of the big villains, and then I'm like, wait a second, he's Batman's. Why? And then that's when it really started hitting me. Oh my gosh, he talks with a deep voice, and he's so serious all the time.
If they had done a Batman show like that, that's doable, sure. But like the fact that they put it with Green Arrow just doesn't match up.
No, and the thing was when I was working at Warner Brothers, they kept saying this over and over again. They don't want to ruin the movies and the budget and money that they get from the movies with TV shows. That's why I was saying, let's build the background of a character on TV. Let's do all that background, the long, tedious stuff. Let's do that over a couple of years, couple of seasons, and really kind of build that up. And then when you feel like you got enough out of the TV show, let's throw a movie and put these characters right into the movie and do a movie thing, a bigger budget and bigger bad guys and that kind of stuff. It would have been great. Green Arrow, going back to Green Arrow in the comics was an environmentalist, a vegan. He was a smartass, and he was like Spider-Man. He liked to talk to the villains, the bad guys. He'd like to get them all riled up and off balance so that he could hit them with what was it, the boxing glove arrows and the trap arrows and that kind of stuff. It was fun.
Emotional damage.
It wasn't even emotional. Well, yeah, it would be emotional because you get knocked out by an arrow. You're going to be like, who the hell stopped me like this? But it was, that was kind of the whole point of Green Arrow. He was like Batman, but even the character, he was rich. He was rich like Batman. They were both wealthy people that had he invented Batman gear, Bruce Wayne did. Ollie invented all this arrow gear. And he even made a joke. He teamed up with Harley Quinn. I can't remember if this is the comics or not, but he called, he goes, this is the arrow den or something like that. Instead of like the Bat Cave, this is the Arrow Cave. And Harley goes, I'm so surprised. And he goes, oh, because it's so big? She goes, no, that you didn't call it the Quiver. And he was like, oh my God, that's better. Batman would have never admitted it was better. Never. But but Green Arrow would. And that was the thing about Ollie. He was different than Batman in many ways, including that he had a love interest throughout the comics who was green, or not green, it was a Black Canary. And I love that. I think that would have made a great movie too. Green Arrow as a movie where the Black Canary that they had in, and this is the only character I liked out of this movie, was Birds of Prey. That movie was terrible. Mm-hmm. Horrible. There was a throw to try and get money out of people, and it sucked. It was terrible. And if you talk to any comic book fan, they'll tell you the same thing. Yeah. The character that they had in there as Black Canary, she was amazing. And I love that she was a woman of color. I think that they should do that storyline again, maybe even in a TV show, but make them like the comic book characters. You will get all the fans running to it. Which also brings me to my other, it reminded me of the one character in all of the comics that I love so much. She is amazing. Is Cassandra Cain. Now, the characters changed names a lot. She was originally Batgirl, but now I think she goes by Orphan. But Cassandra Cain, I should say it's Cassandra Cain - Wayne, because Batman adopted her. And she originally started out as a character. Cain was this assassin, world-class assassin, and he and Lady Shiva had a baby together, but he told her that the baby was lost, and it wasn't. And when she gave birth to the child, he took her and trained her to be the best assassin on the planet. And so he even taught her a way of learning to read body language rather than read how read or listening to voices or speaking in a language. She read body language, so she didn't understand even how to speak, not any language in any way, but she could speak to everybody because she understood what their body language meant. It also made her a better killer. So it was amazing. And at like 7, she killed her first bad guy or somebody. So it was amazing. And then when she started working for Batman, Batman took her and said, okay, well, we're going to train you to be a hero. We're going to use those abilities of yours to do this. And she came across a guy that she saved, and he goes, hey, thank you so much for saving me. I'm a psychic. I have special powers. I can make it so you can speak. So he reached into her mind and made it so she could speak, and she could barely speak in single word sentences, but it slowed her abilities as a fighter. So she couldn't fight as well. I mean, she was still a pretty good fighter, but Batman even said, there's something different. You got to retrain yourself to be a better fighter again, or you're not going to go back on the streets, because I can't have you dying on my watch. And so she figures out that Lady Shiva was her mother. And now, if you don't know who Lady Shiva was, in the comics, she was the greatest martial artist on the planet, and even has a following of people that worship her as the greatest martial artist on the planet. And so she used to hate Batman because he was the only one who could beat her in a hand-to-hand combat fight. And so Lady Shiva figures out that Cassandra's her daughter, so she goes and finds her and tells her, I can help you get back to the way you were, but in 1 year from today, you're going to fight me. And it'll be to the death. And in the process, they find out that they're mother and daughter, and then it comes to the fight, and Cassandra beats her, but doesn't kill her. And there's a bunch of other stuff that happens long after that then too, where Cassandra can fight again, but she can barely speak. And then she actually becomes the League of Assassins leader for a long time. She gets controlled by Talia al Ghul, who is Ra's al Ghul's daughter. She takes control of her mentally, and she ends up taking over the League of Assassins. And but then they got to figure out how to get her back, and I didn't get a chance to read all those comics, but they bring her back, and she becomes orphan. And during that time, right before she becomes orphan, Batman hands her some paperwork that says, I want to adopt you as my actual daughter, so that you always have something to protect you. Yay! And so Batman adopts another child, because he had already adopted Tim Drake, who was the third Robin. He still considers Dick Grayson. I think a lot of times he thinks that Dick Grayson is a brother, not so much a son. But then, suspicious. But then there's, of course, Tim Drake was the third Robin, and then of course Damian Wayne being the last Robin, but who is his actual son. But then, but Cassandra was actually adopted, and Stephanie, who is Trickster's daughter, he never really, went to adopt her, but there was a whole thing about all these, how they're really family and that they actually do look out for each other. That's one of the Batman things about it. But Cassandra Cain, as a character, I could see that story playing out. It would be so amazing. And you don't need special effects. You just need start out with a kid that is good at martial arts, and you get her into a costume, and you have Batman train her, and he shows up every couple of episodes as Batman and says, you better do this, do that, and then disappears, and then she could be solving crimes in Gotham City, And I think that would be amazing. Sorry,
Yeah,
that's
something.
the other one.
So something I've kind of realized is they keep going off the same characters, and there are other characters in their universes. What I'm trying to what I'm curious about is if like Marvel and DC would ever collab to make their own kind of characters, like new ones, to make their own separate universe, like just different like people in general, just to make a whole nother third company for superheroes. Because superheroes are this big thing, and they generate a lot of money, sure, but they're kind of running off the same stories and everything that's already kind of run around, but nothing new unless it ruins what was already there, which kind of hurts its own reputation. I feel like they should make new superheroes for a new universe, because I feel like that would be a lot more interesting than just taking these characters that everybody loves and then ruining them.
Yeah. No, I wish they would do more to the point, more different heroes.
Yeah.
And see where they can go with that instead of just regurgitating the same things. Now, with James Gunn taking over the DC world, a lot of the new stuff that he's bringing in is he's actually bringing in one of my favorite comics, which was The Authority. And these guys were brutal, and they would just crush people's skulls, and it was really bloody. The leader she was 100 years old, and she smoked, but she also had electric powers. She was amazing. And there's a guy that has the ability to tap into a city, and if the city's thriving, he becomes super strong. If the city gets damaged or hurt, then he gets damaged and hurt. Whatever city he's in, he can tap into it. Really cool ideas on, new kind of ideas on heroes. There was one guy called the Doctor, and he's based on doctors in the past, and not just MDs, but like shamans and healing workers and stuff like that. So he could heal people, but he could cause some real damage, and he could slip through dimensions and stuff like that. I mean, just cool stuff like that. There's a girl with wings and talon feet, and she was. I mean, there's just so much that's going to go on, and I can't really tell. I thought he said he was going to do live action with it, but I think it's going to be an animated thing. Oh no, the animated one was going to be the Monsters one. But James Gunn has talked about The Authority, and I'm excited. That's the only thing I'm excited about. All the stuff he listed. He's talking about the new Superman, the new Batman, all this stuff, and I'm like, don't care about those guys anymore. Authority. I want to see The Authority. I want to get into that. And,
yeah.
Sorry, am I running long? Are we running long?
Yeah. What's our time at?
At the moment, we are at 54 minutes.
Okay.
I feel like we should leave it
Okay.
off. I feel like we should leave it off on a better note, though, than The Authority.
Well, I mean, I could kind of tie it into a newer part.
Actually, wait. Well, what do you?
What's up?
Go for it.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say something we could talk about for sure is like Invincible, and how they're coming out with their second season.
Yes.
And I'm really excited for that. I really liked how they've taken the very wow, superheroes are like, all these great people, but like realistically, they're probably not all great people, And superpowers that are like overpowered don't just go to heroes; they go to people. They're all just everybody's.
Tucker, you're kind of peeking on your mic. I'm not gonna lie. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm probably getting close to it.
No, but I like that, and it's like that TV show on Prime that was The Boys. Same.
Oh
thing.
yeah, Boys.
We just assume because they have superpowers that they're going to be these heroes from the comic books, and let's face it, people just aren't. We can be horrible people, even with the best of intentions. We can do horrible things. If we were given superpowers in real life, it could turn really bad. So, but I like that, and I also did you watch the Adam Eve?
I did actually. Yes.
And I liked that too.
I liked how they went for a very realistically brutal approach to it. Like, if you get hit by a supervillain or something, you're gonna like lose a tooth or bleed or something. It's gonna fucking suck. And And they really show that in like the very Invincible series.
Yes,
So
I love that they take this very real approach to it, that like The Boys, where it really does take somebody that really who doesn't want the powers should have the power, kind of thing. But instead, the people who don't deserve those powers have the powers and they abuse it.
So I think that's actually something I want to talk about as well, because I personally don't like that stuff too much. Though it is okay to have it. I'm just saying, like, how do I put this? When it comes to that stuff, I feel like comic books should be about being a better. Well, with superheroes, it should be about being a better person and stuff like that, and showing what you can be rather than like what you actually are. And I think that it can be good to see, hey, this is what humans are like and stuff like that. At the same time, we should also be trying to show ourselves, hey, we can be better people as well. Because Invincible is all about like just us being horrible.
Eventually they all tie into that. It all ties into like getting rid of the true bad guys brings in the real good guys, you know? And these shows eventually will lead to that point. The thing is to emphasize and not ignore the fact that these things are happening. Like, realistically, there's villains. Yeah, and they're probably in control. But eventually, heroes rise up to take them down. And it makes it almost better than just, oh, superheroes are good and they'll always be good, approach. And it switches it in a way that makes it, like, it makes you really invested in the fact that, like, heroes will eventually rise up above the villains. And I think that's something that every one of those evil superheroes stories is leading into.
And actually, that's kind of what I was saying too. Is that with those, even though there are these people with superpowers that are evil, it's about, and like in Du Bois, it's about how these guys who don't have powers are able to figure out a way to stop the heroes that do have powers that are really not heroes. They're bad guys. And, I always kind of liked the idea of the odds being against them, but they still managed to come through. But it's not an easy road.
Yeah, the perseverance of justice and vigilantism.
Yes. Yeah.
I always thought that cool.
Yeah, me too.
All right, I think that's a good area to tie that up on.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was actually pretty good. Okay, so if you want to find us... okay, so if you want to find us anywhere, you can find us on Twitter, Tumblr, Reddit. You can also find us on Spotify or YouTube, whichever one you're looking at us on. And I guess that's about it. Anything else you guys want to say?
No.
Keep it super, my heroes.
Oh my gosh.
I think this was at the end of October. This one will be airing around the end of October. So everybody enjoy your Halloween. Be safe.
I can't wait
out there.
I can't wait for Thanksgiving.
I know, I can't wait.
At the moment we are...
Prep your stomachs for the
I was going to try and convince your mom to do a turkey this month, but I'm really thinking we're going to have to wait until next month and do it.
Yeah.
And start building your shields and prep of Black Friday.
Oh.
You're right, shields.
It's going to get fucking crazy.
Gotta fight through a mob just to get some bananas.
I want turkey! Hadouken! You know?
Well, and also be careful of kids driving on Halloween. I know you gotta get to where you're going. Don't drink and drive. Be safe out there. There's a lot of kids.
Aim for the head.
There are extra points.
Okay. Well, I guess see you guys then. Okay, bye.
All right.
Later. Bye.
Damn it.
Okay.